Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have an interesting show for you tonight. It is Friday the 13th, 2007, and this is our 400th show. We have actually done 400 of these so far and counting, so on to another 20 shows. We'll be at 420. I had hoped we'd have it legalized by show 420, but things don't look that bright unless the Berlin Wall type action happens here this summer, which seems rather unlikely. That's not going to happen. But anyway, we do have some clips from George Cervantes' film on growing cannabis. Tim Pate is here to provide musical accompaniment to lovely cannabis shots. And Don DuPay is here, and I am, and we'll be taking your phone calls here in just a moment. But without further ado, let's bring on the dancing Cannabis Leaves. Our first story tonight comes from San Francisco. It's about the continuing trials and travails of Ed Rosenthal. Federal prosecutors said Friday that they would retry marijuana grower Ed Rosenthal on cultivation charges, even after a federal judge urged them to drop the case and chastised the federal government for lodging charges solely to punish the self-proclaimed guru of ganja. The U.S. District Court Judge Charles Breyer demanded to know who in the Department of Justice decided to continue pursuing Rosenthal, who had his original conviction overturned last year. Rosenthal can't be sentenced to prison even if he is convicted because the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the one-day prison sentence ordered by Breyer in 2003. Newly appointed U.S. Attorney Scott Schools made the decision, according to the Assistant U.S. Attorney George Bevan there in California, who said he was unsure if Justice Department officials in Washington were involved. The judge said the government's position to go forward left him no choice but to schedule a trial, which is set for May 14th. Rosenthal, who appeared in court dressed in a blue wizard's robe with a golden marijuana leaf emblazoned over the breast, said, quote, "This isn't a criminal case. This is a political case. I may as well get my money's worth and have a trial," end quote. Rosenthal, 62, has written numerous books with titles such as The Big Book of Buds and Ask Ed. He also wrote an Ask Ed column for High Times magazine. He was convicted of 3 felonies in 2003 for growing 100 plants for the City of Oakland medical marijuana program, and federal Judge Breyer sentenced him to 1 day in prison on grounds that Rosenthal reasonably believed he was immune from prosecution because he was acting on behalf of Oakland City officials. Breyer is the brother of U.S. Supreme Court Judge Stephen Breyer. A federal appeals court overturned his conviction last year because of misconduct by a juror who consulted an attorney on how to decide the case. The appeals court also ruled against the government and said that the 1-day prison sentence was fair, which means Rosenthal doesn't face any more prison time even if he is convicted again. Thus, he can wear a wizard's robe in court. The appeals court ruling affirmed the federal government's right to prosecute medical marijuana clubs in states such as California, where the drug is legal when used for medicinal purposes. When federal prosecutors indict Rosenthal again on 3 growing charges in October over the same marijuana operation, they also added 4 counts of money laundering and 5 counts of filing false tax returns. But Judge Breyer tossed out those additional charges last month, saying they were solely to punish Rosenthal for winning his appeal to overturn his initial conviction and complaining that the government treated him unfairly. Prosecutors said Friday they wouldn't appeal the judge's decision to toss out those charges. On Friday, Rosenthal's attorney filed court papers asking Breyer to order the government to pay their fees for fighting the money laundering and tax charges. Federal law allows defendants to seek attorney fees if they've been wrongfully charged by vindictive prosecutors. The filing said, quote, the government's position was vexatious, frivolous, and in bad faith because it was motivated by the government's desire to persecute, not convict Mr. Rosenthal in retaliation for his constitutional right to openly express his ideas and freely voice his beliefs without oppression, end quote. The three lawyers declined outside court to state how much money they were seeking and filed that figure confidentially with Judge Breyer. So this was a story from the Associated Press, written by Paul Elias, published today, Friday, April 13, 2007. Our next story is from Denver, and marijuana arrests are increasing in Denver, even though a voter-approved initiative abolished the city's penalties. Marijuana arrests in Denver increased for more than 10% from 2005 to 2006, despite the recent passage of a municipal ordinance calling on police to cease penalizing adults who possess small amounts of pot. Non-felony pot arrests rose from fewer than 2,000 in 2005, when 54% of Denver voters approved Initiative 100, a citywide ordinance abolishing civil and criminal penalties for the possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana by citizens aged 21 and older. And it rose to approximately 2,500 in 2006. The SAFER director, Mason Tvert, who coordinated the I-100 campaign, said, quote, the Denver Police Department's done the exact opposite of what the voters demanded and has gone out of its way to arrest even more adults than ever before. Perhaps even more disturbing is the lack of interest among Denver's elected officials, particularly the mayor, in supporting the people who elected them, end quote. Similar voter-approved efforts to deprioritize marijuana law enforcement in several cities have led to a decrease in marijuana possession arrests, most notably in Seattle. Among those arrested by Denver police on minor cannabis charges, 32% were African Americans, according to census data. African Americans only comprise 11% of Denver's population. So that is out of Denver, where unfortunately that's had the opposite effect to date. So that's the end of our hemp news segment this evening. We are going to have Mr. Tim Pate sing along with some cannabis videos. I think that's what we're going to do, isn't it? And we'll be back in just a moment. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing very well, Paul. It is Friday the 13th, though, so...
I know.
I figured I better not sing tonight. I'll just play something.
All right. It's your choice.
Thanks, there. Thank you.
That was very nice. You wrote that, huh?
I did. I try to write most of the things I play on the show. Yeah, I did.
Well, I want to welcome you viewers out there. And how are you doing this week, Don? Good to see you.
Hectic week, Paul, but we're surviving.
It's been pretty hectic for us, too. You are watching out there, and if you're watching on Friday night, the 13th of April, 2007, you can call us and ask a question at 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your calls and questions for about another 45 minutes or so. So let it ring. We've had a lot of strange developments this week. Maybe we should go into a couple of those. One of them is that the city of Portland has ruled that they are not, the Parks Department has ruled they're not going to issue a permit for our Hempstock Festival. They said that there was open marijuana smoking at last year's hemp stock festival. And so we're trying to get a permit to have that again, and I went into a meeting with several of their officials. It felt like the proverbial fellow going into the lion's den there, and there's like 6 people there, and one of them's a police officer in uniform who's in charge of the drug unit in Central Precinct, and he said there was open marijuana selling down there, and I didn't see it. We all had a real good event. They said that they excluded 30 people from the park.
Not true.
Yeah, I don't know. They weren't part of our event.
No, not true.
So we're going to have to go to the city council next, because once the Parks Department turns down your options to go to the city council, if that doesn't work, we'll go to the courts. And we have a free speech. I mean, to complain about marijuana smoking at a pro-marijuana legalization rally is to say that, okay, if you're at the Iraq rally, you can't protest, the anti-war in Iraq rally, you can't say no bombs in Iraq. You can't, you can't oppose, what you're, you can't protest what, practice what you're opposing here. And so I told, here in Portland, we get maybe 5,000 people down there at one time on the waterfront of Portland, and the city council, or the city parks department, has a conniption, where in Seattle they have 250,000 people. Yeah. Tim, you open the Seattle Hemp Fest, and have every year for 17 years, just like you open our event.
I do.
You open our TV show.
I do open them, and we have what we have is a good working relationship with the police up there. And
it's taken a while to develop.
It has, but it's last year the head of the policeman, the police who handled that area.
Yeah.
He retired, and he was our keynote speaker last year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we've had a really good relationship with them. And
well, I remember there were times in past Hemp Fest 10 years ago or so where they actually were busting and arresting people and cracking down on patients and people.
Right.
But
well, I remember back in in '97 when we had the Hemp Fest out on the waterfront. We didn't have any attendance because they had all the police on horseback there, waiting through the non-crowd, scaring everybody away. But it has changed somewhat.
They had a counter demonstration in '97, or was it '96, where the police, when we got our Hemp Fest permit, decided they wanted to have a police festival right next to our Hemp Festival.
Oh, nice.
And so we actually... It transpired that way. They made them move it down the parkway, though. They couldn't. They wanted to be right next to us, and they had to go down about a quarter mile or so.
Yeah, probably a good thing, or they would have got contaminated.
So that's just one interesting development. We have more to talk about. But if you're out there and you have questions for us tonight, just give us a call at 503-288-4448. Another thing they complained about is that we set up a tent so medical patients could medicate in a private location. Now, the Parks Department people said that this is a public park, and therefore, even with the tent, it's not a private location. And so because we set up that tent, and they told us not to, they say they're denying our permit based on that. That's another one of the things. They had a whole slew of different things to complain about.
We need to talk to the mayor.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go in front of the city council on May 9th. There's several of us that are slated. If you're interested in doing that, we'll talk about it a little bit. But
we're going backwards faster than we're going forwards.
Well, I don't think that. We're going forwards. There's a lot of different things that are propelling us forwards in a lot of different ways. There's always, it's one step forward, 2 steps back in a lot of cases. But I think we're making a few jumps forward. Yeah, Tim?
I think it is an opportunity for us to be in public and to show them what we did do last year and the year before, because I was the assistant producer of that show myself, and I know that we had opportunities to shine. And if they're not seeing that, then we need to show them. And this is a chance for us to show them.
Well, that's what we're going to have to do. Talking to Commissioner Dan Saltzman in the Portland City Council, his office, not him directly in this case, but they said that they want us to approach the other city council members and get them on our side. So we need to do that. We want our viewers to contact the Portland City Council and tell them to support the Hemp Stock Festival that we want to have. That's any of the city commissioners or even the mayor would be a good person to contact in that regard. Hey, we have a question from a studio audience member. Go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. As some of the people here know, I was real involved with hemp stock last year, and we did not have any problems. When we go to City Council, we will bring them the dispatch records, which show there were no problems. It's a shame we're the victims of bad politics.
Well, yeah, that is politics. And one thing that the guy from the Parks Department told me is that the federal DEA came in, DEA agents or Drug Enforcement Administration agents came to his office and complained. This is a fellow named Grube who works in Salzman's office, and he's in charge of parks under Salzman. And so he said that the DEA had come in and complained about our little event. And I hadn't heard any of this until this past week, so it's pretty amazing that they can bring these things up ex post facto, so to speak. Hey, we have another caller on the line. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi, my name's Josh. I have a question and a comment.
Go right ahead.
The comment's about hemp stock. I went to this last hemp stock here in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great time.
Yeah.
I can say that I saw open cannabis use, but I didn't see any cannabis sales at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anybody trying to.
We ran a few people off who we saw selling cannabis, and we told them, you're going to have to leave, you can't do that here, you're going to get our event in trouble.
But overall, I had a great time at the event. My question tonight is about states with legal cannabis for medical patients that border each other. Is it legal to transport cannabis between states, for example, Oregon and California?
You know, it is not. It's explicitly Oregon's law is for Oregon patients. California's law might be a little. If you have a doctor who's licensed in both states, you might broach that issue. However, once you cross state lines, you can bring in the federal government. That's the danger there. Interstate transport directly, gives the federal government one reason where they could pick up that case.
Okay. Thanks very much for your time. Can I also give a shout out to my roommates, Aaron and Ariel, watching in the other room?
All right. Hey, Aaron
Thanks a lot.
Ariel. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good night. So, yeah, going across state lines obviously is a big problem. And speaking of that, we had a federal subpoena delivered to our foundation's medical clinic this week asking for 17 patient records. And you're supposed to not say anything about these, but we're going to protest this. In fact, we're filing a motion to quash that. Our attorney, Ann Whitty, thinks that this warrant... There are certain federal laws that say patients' privacy and medical records are sacred and can't be opened without the patient's permission. There are other laws that empower grand juries, so there's definitely a conflict in law here. So it came out of a Yakima court. They requested 17 different people's records, and we, of course, are not going to comply with this, and we're going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court because we hold our obligation to protect patients' privacy as a sacred duty, and we'll fight that to the end, and we're pretty sure we'll prevail.
Amen.
And that's another
Fascism.
Another thing that had something to do, I think, with patients crossing state lines, because some of these, actually the majority of these patients that they're asking for are Oregon patients, and only a few of them are Washington patients. And out of the 17, 3 of them aren't our patients at all. There's another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello there.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi, this is Coco. Where are you guys going to have your meeting tomorrow?
Now, that's the Oregon Normal meeting, just to have a clear distinction. There's another Oregon Normal show here in the Portland area, but Oregon Normal's going to have their meeting at Liberty Hall, and Liberty Hall is in North Portland. What is it, just off Vancouver?
On Ivy Street, just off
What is
Vancouver.
your address?
On Ivy.
What's your address? What is your address?
What is
address?
that address? There it is, 311 North Ivy Street, Portland, Oregon. That's 311 North Ivy Street, Portland, Oregon. How far is that off Vancouver?
About a block.
About a block off Vancouver, which is the dividing line between North and Northeast Portland.
And what
it's
time?
for card holders only. You want to be there no later than noon. I would recommend getting there about 11:50 or 11:45. Give
Okay.
yourself a few minutes to find it and park and get to the door. And it's not that large an area, is it? I mean, it might
No,
hold
I had
like
a
100
fundraiser
people.
there when I ran for sheriff, and I know the facility. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it from that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
And
bye-bye.
that's an Oregon normal cardholder meeting. That's for medical marijuana patients. There will be patients trading strains and some medicine given away by patients to other patients there. So it's a very good resource, a once-a-month event that Oregon Normal's been doing quite successfully for, seems like a couple years now. Couple, maybe not quite that long, but good long time. Well, if you're out there and you have a question for us tonight about ending adult marijuana prohibition, which is what we're really all about, and restoring industrial hemp, and helping medical marijuana patients, then you can call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We have a studio audience member who has a question here, too. Hey, how are you doing?
Well, it's more of a comment. Friday the 13th is known as a bad luck day because that's the day the Templar Knights were hunted down. And I don't know how many people know that they grew fields and fields of hemp and also traded in hashish because it was considered a rare good. And that's the only thing they traded.
They were crusaders that went to the Middle East, weren't they?
Yeah, and that's where they got the hashish from. They learned it from there. So cannabis is actually directly related to Friday the 13th. It's one of the reasons that they were killed, basically, was their dealings in hash.
Well,
so I just wanted to let a lot of people know that. I don't know how many people knew that.
Does that have something to do with the Masons, the Knights of Templar, and all that?
Yeah,
are these connected? You're the expert, right?
No.
I don't know. I just know that that's the day they were hunted down and they dealt in hash.
All right. Well, thanks for that tip. That's always a good thing to know. Now we have another phone caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello. I've got a question for you guys. I'm a grower and a caretaker. I'm wondering if you could, if it affects you having a concealed weapons permit.
You've got a concealed weapons permit, don't you, Don?
Yes,
They haven't bothered me.
Yeah. It should not affect it at all. If it does, I'm sure the National Rifle Association will get right in there to protect your rights to, keep and bear arms. And the reason that George Washington said that we have the Second Amendment is we can keep arms so we can protect ourselves from the government.
That's right.
I don't own any guns. I want to make that clear. But when I was in the military, I had an expert marksman badge, and if I thought I needed a gun, I would not hesitate from going and getting it and using it for whatever I needed to use it for.
All right, I appreciate that information. Thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
I like the statistic, however, that if you own a gun, you're a little bit over 3.5 times more likely to be shot. And I don't want to be shot, so I don't own any guns. And I don't want any of my house to be shot.
Me either, Paul.
I got little kids now, so
Me either.
they're not so little anymore. Keep getting bigger all the time. Yeah, being shot's bad.
Yeah. Well, I was a hired gun in this city for 18 years.
I know, and you were in the homicide
Yes.
unit, and I know you saw a number of people who had been shot, and that kind of really, and I know it grossed you out a lot, and it would definitely not be something I would want to look at very much.
If I'd have been elected sheriff, I'd have been the only sheriff that didn't carry a gun.
That'd be
That'd be
interesting.
at least intimidating.
We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi, yes. I was reading recently a diabetic book, and it was telling me all the great benefits of eating hemp seeds and using hemp seed
very,
oil
very
as a
nutritious.
cooking. And I was wondering, do you guys know where I could find that?
Sure. You can pick up hemp seeds at a number of different outlets. One of the quickest and easiest ways to get them is to go online. There's hemp oil can, which is a Canadian product, and there's Nativa, another hemp seed producer out there. They both will sell you hemp powder drinks. Hulled hemp seeds, by the way, are very, very tasty. They have a taste that's kind of a cross between cashews and walnuts or pecans.
Yeah, it was saying that they're just ideal for diabetics to snack on.
Yeah, they're high in all the essential fatty acids, the omegas 3, 6, and 9 that are lacking in most American food products. And you can get that oil on its own as well at most health food stores. I've even seen it on sale in Fred Meyer on a few occasions in their health food section.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I know there's a company here in Oregon, Emerald, what is it? Emerald Hemp out in Central Oregon. They also sell hemp seed products, and they're a local producer When I went through the Rocky Mountains, I found one that was made up in Park City, Utah. Nice hulled hemp seed product that I've had here on the show. There's a lot of different distributors out there trying to gain a corner of the market, but the largest ones we've seen here in the U.S. are Nativa and Hemp Oil Canada. I know Hemp Oil Canada provided the hemp oil for the Hemp Car Tour that took place about 6 years ago, and for Woody Harrelson's bus tour that was documented by Ron Mann in a documentary called Go Further, about an ecological trip down the West Coast. Even had Ken Kesey in there just before he passed away, so I haven't seen that yet, but I know a lot about it. Anyway, we have a little show and tell item tonight. This is so tiny, you're going to have to really roll in here, Sylvia. You know, this one's itty-bitty. It's from Robbins and Mickelson. It's ergot and cannabis indica compound from a New York City pharmacist in 1890. And this little itty-bitty pill is embossed on the side with these Robbins. It's McKeedens and Robbins. And it had 100 ergotin and cannabis pills in there. It must have been tiny, but it was for neuralgia. And it's another neat little addition to our hemp and cannabis antique medical cannabis container collection.
Yes, it has such a history.
It does indeed. So the few big things this week, we want to get everyone out there to contact, if you're out in the Portland area, contact the Portland City Council. Tim, I understand you were up at the Seattle Hemp Fest Core meeting, and they're watching our show up there, they said.
They get it in Seattle, and I had multiple people tell me that they'd seen it in the last week. So, yeah, up on Channel 77, I think. So
Channel 77
all our friends
Seattle.
Up in Seattle, hello. It's good to have you on the network. It's good to be playing for you.
Yeah, we're getting out there in more and more communities, slowly but surely.
Well,
we are taking over, and we will prevail and end the adult marijuana prohibition.
One toke at a time.
You know, they talk about the medical thing, and some people say, oh, you're doing this, and you're doing okay at it. And what I really want to do is put the clinic thing out of business. I want to see the medical clinics, people should be able to grow their own without a permit, and I want to see it at $10 an ounce out in the, let the state get about a third of that in taxes. And I think it grows on trees. If you could grow 100, 200 acres, $10 an ounce would be a pretty good investment for most farmers.
I grew some for $2 an ounce.
That's pretty low price.
Yes, that's pretty low price. And
at $2 an ounce, you sell it at 10. That's a 500. Most people would be happy with a 500% profit margin, But in the cannabis industry, some people like them a little bit higher than that. And what we want to do is see some competition and end adult marijuana prohibition, and we have a plan to do that. But we might roll that out a little bit later. More details coming soon. So again, this is show 400. You've been on since...
I come on 196, so this is 200 plus for me.
Wow.
I may have missed one or two, but...
My, how time flies when you're having fun,
Yes.
It just keeps rolling along, doesn't it?
200 shows, we qualify as a veteran?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. Yeah, it's been a little over 10 years now we've been doing it. There was a time there where, we didn't have them every week. Sometimes we'd have 4 or 5 in a 13-week period, and then finally as we became a senior, our production became got senior status, we were able to get it on every week, and that didn't have to compete anymore once you have senior status. And
you get that ARP card and your life changes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Everything for the better. We have a film clip we're going to roll here. It is from George Cervantes, who is from the Portland area and has written the Indoor Marijuana Horticulture, which has recently been revised, and now the new edition is called Indoor and Outdoor Marijuana Horticulture, the Medical Marijuana Grower's Bible. And so this is from George Cervantes in his Grow CD. And so we're going to show a little clip from that. We'll be back in just a minute.
Okay, here we are on Vancouver Island, and we're going to make clones. Well, the first thing we're going to do is take this chopstick, and I'll make a small hole right in the middle here. And the hole goes about half as deep as the container is. This will allow extra space for the roots to grow. Here we have an inexpensive rooting gel that we can purchase at most any nursery. So what I'm going to do is take some of this rooting hormone, and I'll pour it in a jar here. Notice I've got a fresh razor blade that I've just taken out of the cardboard, and we'll move over here and take a cutting. These plants are in the vegetative growth stage, and they're mother plants. Mother plants are female plants that we know are female, that we take cuttings from, and we'll show you about that. What I'm doing is making a cut here at the fourth node, 1, 2, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes down, or 4 branches down from the top. And I'm making the cut on a 45-degree angle, and I made the cut on the 45-degree angle so there'll be a little bit more surface area here at the base of the stem for roots to initiate. Now what I need to do is trim off a couple of branches, and notice I'm trimming it off so that there's no extra little spurs here on the plant. Now, roots will initiate out of each one of these cuts and out of the bottom. So what I do next is I'll take this, smear it around a little bit in this root-inducing gel. I'll take this hormone-coated stem and place it down in the soil, and careful not to let any of that root-inducing hormone fall off. Okay? And then I backfill so that the soil comes in good contact with the stem. Let's do another one here. This one, I'll go down just the 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes, make a 45-degree angle cut, trim off a couple of branches and leaves so there's no little spurs or anything to rot underneath the soil line. And I'll do the second one here. And remember, roots will initiate out of any cuts. I just put a little bit in here because we're only going to do a half a dozen. And once I use this hormone, I don't want to put it back in the container because it could contaminate it. Now I've got root-inducing hormone all over the stem. I carefully set it down into the soil and backfill around it. Make sure, and you can push it pretty hard down to make sure that there's good contact with the soil. One of the things that we have to be concerned with is when we cut a tip of a plant off, there's no root system to supply water to the leaves. So what we're going to do is mist the top of these plants, or mist them a little bit so there's some water on the leaves so they have a little bit of humidity around them and they don't dry out real fast. Because as soon as we're done here, we're going to put these under a humidity dome. And roots will start on this plant within the next 7 days, and within 14 days it'll be a complete root system, and this should be ready to transplant. There's all kinds of mediums that you can take cuttings in. One of them is rock wool. Another one that people like very well is Oasis cubes. There's Jiffy peat pellets, sunshine cutting mix, coconut husks are also work very, very well. So it pretty much depends upon what you're comfortable with and what you like to use. So what I've done here is I placed this little cutting into a rock wool cube, and the rock wool has been soaked for 24 hours in a solution with a pH of 6, because that's the pH that roots grow best at. I stuck it in a pre-drilled hole that's about this deep, and that's how long the stem is within this cube. And that gives the roots plenty of room to grow down below. Now, at this point, I'm going to take this cutting and put it right over here with the other ones. And it's sitting on a bed of perlite, this white fluffy perlite, that lets the water drain out but still holds moisture really well in between the pieces of perlite, and it creates a nice humid little environment. Right after this, what I'm going to do is I'll take one of these domes and place over the top of all of these cuttings here. What the dome does is it retains humidity within and around the plant. This is incredibly important for the first.
All right. Well, there's a little how-to.
Yep. One of the
little
secrets
information
everybody
there.
wants to know. How
Yep.
do cuttings?
And it looked like they had rooted very well there.
Yes.
We have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen.
Howdy.
I got to tell you, Paul, I'm surprised that you've had 400 shows on, and as
It's
you said,
amazing, isn't it?
We're still illegal.
Yeah.
30-plus years ago, back in '76, I think I told you once before that I sat down with Keith Stroop at the normal office in Georgetown, and if somebody would have told me back then that 31 years later, we'd still be fighting to legalize marijuana, I'd have told them they were crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It certainly looked in the 70s like it was going to happen a lot more quickly, didn't it?
It did.
It was before the Reagan backlash and the Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the Just Say No campaign that Nancy Reagan coordinated. And back then, I thought in the early 80s for sure it was going to be legal. But
Well, my question tonight is, this is something that should not be withheld from the public, and yet, I listen to the show every week, and I think, well, gee, they're preaching to the choir because, I believe as you do, but how? My frustration is, how do we get this subject out into the public more? I mean, I was talking to the gentleman that mans the phone earlier about Oregon Normal and ASA and the other groups that are trying to do the same thing we're doing.
Every time you get a chance, you want to get it out there in the media, and we try to do that, as much as we can. For instance, here we take in the lemons. We got a subpoena commanding me to present medical records to a federal grand jury in Yakima. I just got that on Tuesday of this week. Well, this is really a great opportunity. Thank you for delivering mine enemies to me, because now I'm going to file a motion to quash this, and I'm going to have a press conference and say, look what these dirty dogs are doing. And we need to write our elected officials, or even better, get out there and run and become an elected official. That's we've got to encourage people who support our issue to do it more forcefully. For instance, we've had Dennis Kucinich on this show a couple of times.
Right.
Although he's still a real dark horse candidate, he is moving up, it appears, in the political polls. I know among the Move On people, they said he had one of the best records this week to end the Iraq war policy. He's been opposing the Iraq war from the beginning. He was a very lonely voice at first, and now seems to be leading the crowd. But he's been on our show a couple of times, and there's a person who stands up to end adult marijuana prohibition, who's running as Democratic nominee for that nominee. And then in the Republican Party, we have Ron Paul, who is a Houston Libertarian. He ran as the Libertarian Party presidential candidate back in 1988, and I met him then when he came through Portland. And he has been a congressman before that and since that as a Republican in Houston, Texas. And he stood up for individual rights more forcefully than anyone in the Republican Party. If we could see him get support in that party, and I think he could get a lot of conservative support, then there's options out there, and we've got to let these people know with our letters and to the media, and just keep drilling it home as much as we can. That's what we're going to try to do. Get it out there and take any opportunity to turn your lemons into lemonade.
Well, I'll certainly contact the city council and
yes, please,
and fight for the M-Stock license once again.
Yeah, and Representative Diane Rosenbaum, who I actually lost to in the only political contest I ever had when I ran back in 1998 for state rep for District 14. She is killing Bill 465, Senate Bill 465. So you can call her and thank her and encourage her to kill Senate Bill 465, which would let employers fire medical marijuana patients for no reason without any testing or anything.
And what's the bill we should be supporting?
There's Senate Bill 767. That's it, right? 767. And it's the Attorney General that's holding that one up. So we need to contact Hardy Meyer's office. And, according to Rosenbaum's office, there's only been one person who called to support Senate Bill 465, and that was Senator Metzger, who wrote the bill. And that all their other contacts, literally hundreds and hundreds of them, have been against that bill. And so Rosenbaum is doing a good job in killing that. Thank you. And we need to turn Hardy Meyers around to support Senate Bill 767 here in Oregon. For our people who are watching up in Washington, we want to support Senate Bill 6032. That's 6032, and contact, if you're in Washington, your state legislators up there, and urge them to support Senate Bill 6032. It will have the health department establish a number. It will expand the medical marijuana law. Right now, Washington's law is the weakest in the country, and it needs to be amended. It says that patients can have a 60-day supply, but it's only an affirmative defense. And you know how you employ an affirmative defense. You employ it by getting arrested and going before the court. So this would mean that people who had a certain number of plants or less, just like in Oregon per patient we can have 24, then the people below that threshold would be safe, and the ones above that would have to raise an affirmative defense in Washington. In Oregon, you can't raise an affirmative defense if you're above 24 plants per patient.
Why is that?
Because when they expanded the law from 7 to 24 plants and from 3 ounces per patient to 24 ounces per patient, the trade-off with the law enforcement lobbyists, who are the most powerful lobbyists in any state legislature, the trade-off was the affirmative defense for patients above the new, much higher limit. But it increased the amount of plants a patient could have by 3.5 times, and the amount of marijuana a patient could have by 8 times.
Well, I appreciate you guys being the voice out there. I'm just frustrated that we need to get more people involved in this dialogue, and I don't know how to do it.
Well, just talk to your family and friends. Write letters to the editor and contact those legislators. That's really the way to do it, and eventually the truth will prevail. I just keep plugging away at it and hoping that we'll live to see it.
Yeah, me too. God bless you guys. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's frustrating for all of us, of course.
Yeah. You have an interesting editorial for us this week, Don?
Paul, we're going to go back to the Bible with this cannabis stuff. And whenever we have a crowd like Hempstock or Hempfest, there are all those Bible thumpers that have a sign about 8 feet tall saying that marijuana people are sinners and we're all going to go to hell. Well, believe me, marijuana users are not going to go to hell. At least not for using marijuana. Many people over the years have done hundreds of hours of research. And these are references from prestigious scientific and medical researchers that prove that this God-given plant is good for you. The Bible says, John 8:32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So this is the truth. And so that you will understand, I'm using freely reference work done here by others. I'm merely putting it into perspective for you this evening. 2 Bibles were used in this study, the Authorized King James Version and the American Standard Version. The Old and the New Testament verses are used to show continuity in God's treatment of marijuana. The New Standard Version says in Genesis 1:29, that's on the first page of the Bible, by the way, God says, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be food for you. King James says, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and all of the earth, and the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be meat. Sounds pretty clear to me. Timothy 4:4 says, for everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received in gratitude. King James says, for every creature of God is good, and nothing is to be refused if taken in thanksgiving. Does Genesis 1:29 apply today? Of course it does. It reveals that God's will for all seed-bearing plants. Marijuana is clearly a seed-bearing plant. This is so important that God put it on the first page in the Bible and in the first chapter. You've heard me say this many times before. It's on the first page of the Bible. Pay attention. It's that important for you to God, for you to understand that the gifts we have been given. The Bible speaks for itself. It says clearly that God created marijuana for our use, and says terrible things about those who seek to command abstinence. Criminal sanctions for marijuana use certainly is commanding abstinence. This is so wrong and so evil. Biblically, marijuana is a seed-bearing plant. Botanically, marijuana is an herbaceous annual plant, a weed. Botanically and scripturally, marijuana is an herb and a food. Humans can and have survived in robust health eating marijuana seeds. The lady inquired earlier about how marijuana seeds were beneficial.
They taste great.
For everything God created is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received with gratitude. Now, if you want to see grateful people, you're going to find them where marijuana has reduced pain, made a tumor go away, whose depression is vanquished, or who have just gathered in happiness to share each other's company. John 13:35, Jesus said it's okay to gather in large, loving groups. Finally, in Exodus chapter 31, verse 21 is where it starts. God gave us the recipe for holy oil. He gave this recipe to Moses and commanded him to make it. So write down these ingredients, folk, because they're all holy in God's eyes. The ingredients for holy oil are olive oil, cinnamon, myrrh, and cannabis. A lot of cannabis. Mix that up and pour some over you, and I know you'll feel holy. So there it is. There's plenty of documentation if you're looking, and if you have an open mind. I always tell you the truth, and the truth is in the Bible. And that's the way I see it tonight, right down here on Hemp Street.
Thank you, Don. Great. You know, I've always held that recent studies, and Jack Harrer helped bring a lot of this to light, show that it's all about biodiesel and energy, and that marijuana prohibition is not about drugs, and it's certainly not about marijuana. And as I've said for many years, it is about money and the continued centralization of economic and political control, and is foisted upon us by the petrochemical industry to take away industrial hemp, to take away hemp seed oil primarily, but also hemp fiber, and to give us other synthetic materials that are easily monopolized when you have these economies of scale where most of us can't compete and open a $10 billion oil refinery, where a farmer can get a seed press and get 300 gallons an acre and 3 tons of hemp seed meal just from the seeds alone. So it's not about money. I mean, it's not about marijuana, it's about money and economic and political control. But we have another caller. Hello, caller, you're on the show.
Hello, my name is Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen.
What I need to tell you tonight is I called about a month and a half ago to try and find out how I could go about getting a medical marijuana card.
Uh-huh.
I'm 52 years old. I have arthritis. I am overweight, but it's not from overeating so much as I guess I'm just a big woman.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having like back pain. I had cancer of the uterus 4 years ago. I smoked the marijuana. Like I said, I'm 52 years old. I'm not a young kid. It's not a game.
Sure.
It helped me. I was able to sleep. I was able to work. I went to Kaiser Insurance. I have the doctors over there through the state of Oregon.
Great.
But the only problem is when the gentleman called me back from the marijuana info said that I needed to get a thing saying that I had arthritis, and I could see one of the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
When I explained to my doctor what it was for, he said that if I started smoking marijuana because it's illegal, he would not be my doctor anymore.
Well,
what I need to do is find out how do I go about this.
Well, let me tell you first off.
Insurance.
Let me tell you first off that you actually have one of the best insurances for medical marijuana, because the main office of Kaiser Permanente has said that their physicians are authorized to issue medical marijuana permits. However, you've run into a doctor who's obviously completely ignorant about the medicinal benefits, and that's not unusual. You know, there's a lot of bias out there and a lot of misinformation. So what you need to do is say, okay, you aren't my doctor, I'm going to see someone else in Kaiser. Kaiser's a big place. I know Madeline Martinez of Oregon Normal has Kaiser insurance. When her doctor refused to write her a medical marijuana recommendation at Kaiser, she demanded to see the supervisor, and the supervisor got another doctor who would write a medical marijuana recommendation. You don't necessarily have to go to a medical marijuana specialist. However, if you don't want to have that information in your permanent medical record and you want to keep it completely private, you might want to go to a medical marijuana specialist as well. Or if you don't want to go through the hassle of demanding a new doctor. The thing is, you don't have to tell your doctor you're using medical marijuana unless you want to. It's up to you.
Well, the only problem that I have is I work for the state of Oregon, and I take care of my clients, but I don't want my job jeopardized.
Right, right. Well,
because
you're
every
protected
bit of my
as a,
every bit of my insurance is on the computer, and
Right.
everybody that I deal with knows that I smoke marijuana.
Well, do they know that now?
They do now.
I mean, no. Do they know that currently? I'll tell you what, if you want to keep it private, by all means, what you want to do is come to our office and fill out a medical release. It doesn't say anything about medical marijuana, and then we'll fax it to Kaiser's computer office, and your doctor will never know that we got the medical records at your request. That's one way to do it.
And how is that?
Say that again?
And how is that it won't take my job away from the
Kaiser's
state of
a
Oregon?
huge unit, and the doctors have no idea what they have. A central computer system. Things at Kaiser are very efficiently organized. At least they can say that for them. And
Well, they
it's
even
all
sent me to a
computerized.
psychiatrist over this, saying that you don't need the marijuana, you just need to take a nerve pill.
If I were
But
you,
right
I would
now they have
complain to
me on
his supervisor. I would find
you need
his
a new doctor.
supervisor and tell his supervisor the witch doctor medicine that he is proposing. But if you don't want to do that, then we do have doctors who can help you.
Okay,
So,
I just don't want
we
to
have
lose
a
my
referral
job to
service.
the state of Oregon.
Sure. It can be done completely privately. So let me give you a little bit of information. You probably know this because you've already been in touch, but for our viewers out there, and we're just wrapping up, I'm going to let you listen to the rest on the air here. But thanks for your call.
I appreciate that. I just want help, but I want to save my job, too.
I understand. And so by contacting the medical marijuana specialists that we have referred patients to, it's completely private, and they won't. Your employers won't know about it. The documents that go to them won't discuss it. So in the Portland area, you can call us, and anyone who has a chronic and severe pain condition, a chronic and severe condition that causes nausea, like IBS or Crohn's disease or any other diagnosis of chronic and severe nausea, that has cancer or AIDS or glaucoma or a severe spastic condition causing muscle spasms, such as multiple sclerosis, or a neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or a seizure disorder like epilepsy. All of those things qualify for medical marijuana. Gastrointestinal ailments qualify, hepatitis C, and it does across the western United States. We have doctors who can help you in Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, and Hawaii currently, and we'd be happy to steer them to you. Call us in Portland, though, at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you're up in the Seattle area, you can call our Seattle number. It's 206-878-1701. That's 206-878-1701. And for folks in Denver, you can call our Denver number. The Denver number is 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. And if you're outside of those metropolitan areas, but anywhere in the western United States, call us toll-free at 1-800-723-2727. 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And we are now offering classes on beginning growing, advanced growing, outdoor growing, how to make medical grade hashish. Those are the class times for this month in Portland. But call us if you are a medical patient. You have to have a medical marijuana permit to come to one of our classes. And so if you want to learn a bit about that, then if you have a permit, then call us. They're really very, very inexpensive. And so there you have it. Well, we're down to just about 3 minutes left to go here, Don. I think we did another good one. Show 400.
400.
I sure hope we don't have to do another 400 before this prohibition's over, but we will if we have to. We'll probably do it anyway, even when we do keep it legal. I mean, it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun, you know. So I want to thank our viewers for watching out there. Do you want to say anything in closing, Mr. Dupay?
Remember, cannabis is holy. I don't care what they tell you. It's in the Bible. Belongs to you. You use it.
Yep. And help us restore him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tim, you want to take us out?
Why not?
Some wonderful music and some lovely cannabis plants.